hated in Australia like Virat Kohli is hated in India. I don't want to use it, but he was a freaking adult. Free to have your opinion. But then when you said that you like him the most in terms of the Australian cricket team after Alex Carey being at the bottom of your list, that says a lot about where he ranks. Hello and welcome to Sioux Specials. We have a very special episode today. A really special day for David Warner and his family. David Warner, who played his last Test match for Australia, and probably we have seen the last of him in the one-day internationals as well, while he won the World Cup for Australia, along with great performances from others in India. So today we'll talk about David Warner, what went on in his career and life, the highs and the lows. Such a checkered career, and I'm sure we have debate on our hands today with Chris, who has a lot of points lined up in terms of what went wrong in David Warner's career and how it has affected others in the Australian
I'm
cricket
thrilled
team,
and
especially his.
excited to be here. Nothing more.
Yeah, Chris is really excited to be here. Correct myself. He's really excited to be here to be talking about David Warner and his role in the sandpaper scandal and how it's affected his favorite player Steve Smith and others' careers in the team, and how David Warner is the sole villain in the entire episode. Whereas I'm going to provide you more perspectives on how Australia found this gem of a cricketer many years back and brought him into the Test side without making his first class debut, purely on potential. A very rare thing to happen in Australian cricket, where people play shield cricket for years. Someone like Michael Hussey, who comes into the Australian setup in his 30s. Someone like Matthew Hayden, who comes as a youngster and then is thrown out of the team and then comes back in at 28, 29 years of age. So a lot of late bloomers in the Australian cricket side is what we have seen over the years, unless it is a superstar of a generation like Ricky Ponting or a Shane Warne or someone like Pat Cummins or David Warner, who come in young and who come in as a prodigy and then make it big. I'm sure we are hoping the same thing for Cameron Green as well. But let's talk about David Warner. Chris, your first thoughts on what has been an eventful career, checkered career. What are your first thoughts? What's your first memory of David Warner?
The South Africa game, obviously, since you said first, I think it might have been 2009. We had Ricky Ponting in that match, of course. So, me being a Ricky Ponting fan for a long time, I think that is when my love for the Australian cricket started as well. And David Warner was pretty young at that time and coming in and smashing it out of the park on his debut. I think Australia raced to 50 like in less than 5 overs. I know with the percolation of IPL today, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but for a cricket team to do that way back in 2009, that was remarkable. I think Warner ended that match with some 88 or 89 in
Yeah.
less than 35 balls. That is, you do that today and it's still an amazing feat. So that was the first window for me into David Warner, and uh, absolutely loved the entertaining innings that it was. And I, of course, I did not remember this all these years, but I went back and checked out the highlights closer towards the retirement, and I noticed when Warner got out. I don't know who was on the commentary. They said he might have missed out on a well-deserved 100, but that man is a serious entertainer. And just fast forward to today, after Warner's farewell match, and when he was called up to the post-match talk with the commentators, they asked, what do you like to be remembered as? What is one thing that people want to associate you with?
Yeah.
And Warner said, I want people to remember me as the entertainer. And
Yeah.
I thought
He
that was
said,
so
I want to be
beautiful.
remembered as being
Yeah,
exciting and entertaining as
yeah,
a cricketer.
exactly. And I felt that was a wonderful full cycle for an amazing cricketer who we all, as Australia fans, should be indebted to, regardless of his darker side, if I may put it that way. But definitely no hard feelings. I think he is somebody who has done enough for the Australian cricket, um, that it is time that we put uh, all the controversies about him behind him, behind us, and just focus on the legacy this man leaves behind, and what the future of Australia will look like after him. Perhaps the immediate dark side, or a black hole that Warner has left, is just that we don't know who's going to fill this gigantic legendary boot.
Yeah, I think we'll talk more about that towards the end of the show, especially on the future of Australian cricket with regard to the opening batters that we have in the lineup or in the bench right now. But what starts to his career, especially in the 2020 setup, the 2020 setup itself being new at that point in time. And I think, as someone rightly called out, he was a prodigy and he was spotted way too early. And to bring him into the test setup, that took immense confidence. Someone like Michael Slater, who played really well in tests at a good strike rate and had a good average of around 45 odd, uh, did not really play that great in the white ball game at that point in time. He was given an opportunity to play one days. But these days, you also see a lot of players who are first bursting into the scenes in the limited overs format, and then realizing some potential in different in a batting slot or a bowling slot in test matches, and then breaking into the test side as well. So I think David Warner started that trend in a way, I would say. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it is safe to say that David Warner is the greatest of all time if you look at an all format player for Australia. Of course, this comes with an asterisk, simply because you've had people who could have donned that role, the likes of Adam Gilchrist or
Yeah,
Matthew Hayden, who simply did not have the opportunity to thrive in T20s as much as they would have liked to.
yeah.
But all said and done, Warner is simply the best for Australia if you consider all three formats of the game.
Yeah, I think we have, as far as Australia is concerned, they had similar potential seen in Darcy Short. If you remember Darcy Short, who currently plays for, if I'm not wrong, he plays for Tasmania and the Hobart Hurricanes, but I'm not sure if he shifted teams in the BBL. But they saw similar potential in Darcy Short, but it was very short-lived. He played a few 2020s and one days for Australia, but didn't really enjoy being there in the white ball game. So probably, didn't make it to the test side as well.
Yeah.
But this one is probably in the mold of someone like Virender Sehwag, I would say. And Sehwag and Warner go back a long way. And in a recent interview as well, Warner or Sehwag, one of them mentioned that they had a conversation, and Sehwag told Warner that he would really make a good addition to the test side. And he told Warner that he should try test cricket because he'll be really good at it during the early stages of David Warner's IPL career. And Sehwag told him that, in test cricket, it's all power play. In 2020 cricket, for players like you and me, we have 20 overs of power play, not 6 overs, 20 overs of power play. But in test cricket, it's all power play. All the fielders are close to you. You just hit. Excuse me. So I think that was a very good memory. And I think, it's a different kind of a batting culture when you have someone like David Warner or Virender Sehwag in the opening batting partnership to put the opposition completely on the back foot immediately. So I think that's where such players make a huge difference.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought up Virender Sehwag. He was the perfect blueprint for Warner as an explosive batsman who had their own flaws, which sometimes um, makes all the difference in Test cricket. because it's not like the ODIs. A significant weakness in the game can just cost you your test career because of the nature of the game. And somebody like Virender Sehwag, who had actually overcome that, whose talents and whose attacking mindset actually was enough to overcome that. Him giving him the confidence and the roadmap to do that, that probably helped Warner, make it as big as he did in Test cricket. And funnily enough, by the time that Warner hung up his boots in Test cricket, he has surpassed the legacy of Virender Sehwag or any explosive attacking batsman in Test cricket for that matter. I think that's a nice segue into the stats, the career stats of David Warner. Just look at
Yeah,
those. He
absolutely. Like
was
he's almost in the mid 40s in terms of career averages across formats, and that's what establishes his consistency across formats. He plays the same way almost across formats. Of course, his strike rate in Test cricket is slightly lower, but we have seen him play Test
70
cricket.
test rate, 70 strike rate being low is such a Gen Z take,
Yeah.
Khandalf.
No, but he has played with a strike rate of almost 90 in certain matches that we have seen 90 or 100 plus. Especially in the third innings where Australia already has a slight lead, he would bully the opposition into submission.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
that is some of my favorite memories. The Australian summers where Australia start the third innings with a slight lead, maybe 60 or 70, and the opposition would believe that what, if we pick up a couple of early wickets, we might actually get back into the game. But then Warner would totally different ideas. At the blink of an eye, you could have gotten water, or to quote VS, not Ravi Shastri, you could have gone on to take a dump and come back. By the time you would have seen the lead swell up to 120 or 130, and you would see these overseas cricketers in the Australian heat absolutely deflated, like my high school cycle tire. You would feel bad for the opposition, like they would have submitted, but you could not do anything. You just had to wait
Yeah,
for
one
Warner
thing
to
which
have his way.
stands out in that memory list is I think it was the Perth Test versus India, and India is trailing only slightly, I guess, if I'm not wrong. And Warner just did a blitzkrieg in the third innings and scored a century within a session. I think it was post tea or something like that. I'm not sure, but he did a century, and then then it was just Australia's game to lose from that point. But until then, it was probably anybody's game. Uh, it was so entertaining, and I think it was baseball before all baseball began. So I think that's what players like Brendan McCallum, Virender Sehwag, David Warner, and Adam Gilchrist was probably a pioneer in that regard, especially in the middle order, but in Test cricket. So I think these players bringing that kind of excitement, and we have very few players like that in world cricket. Not talking about just Australia, to do that and bring crowd into the stadium to watch a cricket match.
Absolutely, and that was the Australia way always. I know baseball has gained a lot of reputation, but Aussies pioneered it for anybody who have been watching cricket from the late 90s or early 2000s, like you have. And Warner came in and he just took up the mantle of legends like Adam Gilchrist and Matthew Hayden. Fans of Australian cricket, we have gotten used to Australia dominating games for 5 days on. And anything less than that would have been branded a failure. And for a young David Warner with no first class experience to come up and take up that role, and within no time, you didn't feel like you were missing those greats. Warner fit in seamlessly. I think I just can't wait for us to get towards the end of this episode where we get to talk a lot more about who are the potential shoe fillers for David Warner, same way that he did for those people.
Yeah, I think you rightly mentioned, bringing the stats back up. We never missed someone like Matthew Hayden or Justin Langer, for that matter. And although we miss Shane Warne, we missed Shane Warne for a long time until we found Nathan Lyon, and we missed someone like Glenn McGrath until we found Pat Cummins or Josh Hazelwood. Uh, we miss players, some of the other players, but we never miss someone like Matthew Hayden or Justin Langer. That's a very important point, and that's because it was filled by someone like David Warner. Although the things around him kept changing, you had a list of around 12 openers who have played with him across 12 years, and
Yeah,
the
it's
name.
looking like a India scorecard when Rahul Dravid bats, right? You have the wall standing at one end while the rest of the team keeps falling like a pack of dominoes. That is what David Warner's career in Australia cricket as an opener looked like. It's the sheer rundown of names, right? From Shane Watson, Chris Rogers, um, Cameron Bancroft,
Usman
even has so
Khwaja,
many other
Joe
names.
Burns,
So
someone
much.
like Joe Burns,
Yeah.
Ed,
Who
Ed
can forget
Cowan.
Joe
Yeah,
Burns?
I can read that name out, the list out, and it's basically, I think it also includes Glenn Maxwell for an innings. I don't remember the match, but I am sure it must have somewhere been in India or someone might have gotten injured to open. It has Glenn Maxwell for an innings, Shane Watson, Will Pukoski, a youngster who is still trying to break into the team. He has opened with Phil Hughes, Sean Marsh, Marcus Harris, Matt Renshaw, Cameron Bancroft, Joe Burns, Ed Cowan for 28 innings. With Joe Burns and Ed Cowan, he batted the most, around 28 innings. Only second to someone like Usman Khwaja and Chris Rogers, who come first in the list, with who he has batted around 41 innings. So
Yeah.
I think
There is
to have batted with 28 odd innings with Joe Burns and Ed Cowan requires a lot of patience for someone like David
yeah.
Warner, I would say.
Absolutely. And there is one name there that definitely stands out. That is that of Phil Hughes. I think that Phil Hughes incident will always be one of the darkest and saddest days in Australia cricket. And like, I was in high school at the time when it happened, and it is one of those things that still feels like yesterday. So you know it. Most of my close friends know it. I have a terrible memory in general. I can't, for the love of God, remember most past incidents. But Phil Hughes passing away was one such instance that I simply cannot erase from my memory as much as I tried. Do you want to talk about David Warner and Phil Hughes and the relationship that they share? Khandalf, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was just talking about the plaque that he actually, graces every time he walks out to bat out of the SCG. Shows the amount of value that David Warner has placed on Phil Hughes in his life. So, like, Phil Hughes means a lot to him. Uh, he is probably like a little brother to him, is what he said during the time of Phil Hughes' passing. And Phil Hughes meant the same way for many others in the team as well at that point. Even to Michael Clark, he was like a little brother
Yeah.
for Aaron Finch. I think some of these players are still mourning, if I'm not wrong. Michael Clark tears up even now when he talks about Phil Hughes. David Warner, it only made sense that he had a huge graphic saying "Thanks, Dave" on the ground today at the SCG on the outfield, similar to what Phil Hughes had in the immediate test match after. I think there was number 408 mentioned on the ground in that test match. So I'm sure Phil Hughes would be a very proud mate today while Warner has signed off from the SCG.
Definitely, I think
Yeah.
one small complaint that all of us had today was Warner actually got out at 57, but there
Yeah.
was very real potential for him to just score those. I think it
63
was
not out.
what, six extra runs, so he could have easily been 63 uh, not out. That would have been very touching, sweet tribute.
Yeah, that would have
But
been a classic fairy tale finish. Yeah.
But it's okay. I think regardless, we would all love and cherish the memory of Williams for pretty much the rest of our lifetimes. And speaking of lifetimes and Warner's lifetime, there is one more guy in the Australian pack who's like a brother to him, whom he has known from the age of three, literally. Warner and Kawaja, they are now 36, 37 years old. To have been friends and brothers for 35 plus years, to have started playing cricket together. And Kawaja's career did not quite work out the same way as Warner's did. But the fact that he was around, he was able to come back into the team for the last few years, and so many good memories together as an opening pair. That will definitely go down as one of the very best up in Australia history. I thought that was pretty sweet as well.
No, absolutely. I think Usman Khwaja is another childhood friend who he's really attached to, and they will really miss each other. But Khwaja might also heave a sigh of relief that he need not really run as fast as Warner anymore while he's opening the batting for Australia. Himself being the culprit in lot of occasions for runouts in Australian cricket in test matches. So Usman Khwaja is not known to be a really swift runner between the wickets. And Warner gave him a run for his money. And I'm sure he must be relieved at least in that regard. But he's definitely going to miss him. He's probably looking for the next partner. And I've always heard this about opening batters that, regardless of other partnerships within a cricketing side, number three, number four, and so on and so forth, the opening batting partnership is so crucial to a cricketing side start during a test match, that they have a separate culture and mateship, or a separate kind of camaraderie and a friendship, regardless of teams. I mean, it could be a Sachin Sehwag. They have a lot of stories to share, or a Sachin Ganguly, or a Michael Slater or Mark Taylor, or Hayden Gilchrist or Hayden Langer, many others. And even from the yesteryears, in the West Indies side, you will probably find a lot of stories from opening batting partners. So definitely a special friendship, special mateship, special teammate they have in each other, and they are going to miss each other for definitely in the matches to come. And I'm really excited to see who will bat with Usman Khwaja in the West Indies matches.
Oh yes, absolutely. And I'll wait till the end of the episode when we talk about who's a potential partner to bring up what Usman Khawaja actually said in what he looks for a partner. Now that David Warner is no longer going to be coming out alongside him in Test cricket. Um, so I think there is never a good time to bring up what I'm about to bring up next. We spent a good 25, 30 minutes to talk about this incident to get all of it out of our system. So the episode can be, nothing but a celebration of Warner. Uh, but if you're talking about iconic moments in Warner's cricket, it is very hard to go past. I don't know what the 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think he's just flipping me the finger. I'm not sure. But
I'm going to bring it up in 3, 2, 1 is what I meant.
okay.
This the second image before you even began. Here it is. Warner showing his empty pockets to the Ashes crowd, which was taunting him after he made his comeback from the sandpaper gate. Go on, Chris. It's all yours for the next 20 minutes or more.
I hope it's not 20 minutes because I spent at length discussing how I feel about this. I know you have really strong opinion about this as well. I'm sure, as does every Australia fan. The sandpaper gate in 2018 is definitely not a fond memory for any of us, and that tarnished the Australian cricketing reputation, shredded it to pieces. And it quite literally took us a good 5 years, or at least 4 years, for us to come back from that and for the team to rebuild that camaraderie. Needed a lot of shifting around, and definitely a lot of villains. But as any comic book or superhero movies would say there might be a lot of villains to come and go. But it's not unfair to say that David Warner was at the center of that controversy. And I wish I could, but it's something that's very hard for me to look past. What what it did to Australian cricket. I know it was not just Warner, Bancroft, and Steve Smith being the main culprits as well. But you know what they say, you never throw one of your own under the bus. And in this particular instance, for me, Steve Smith does come before David Warner. So that's how I feel about it.
See, I think you just clearly summarized what Australian cricket and the board and the media and the public did with the three of them, Warner, Smith, and Bancroft. You did exactly that. You threw Warner on the under the bus and scapegoating him right now for what happened. They scapegoated all three of them for what happened, and I feel that it was a collective team decision, and I refuse to believe that it happened without anyone's knowledge other than these three. And anyone who actually signed up for it or did not sign up for it, even after knowing this, was complicit in this. Even if it was Darren Lehman, the coach, who at that point in time had so much control and power and seniority and respect in the dressing room, that he could have always said, no guys, this is not happening under my watch. Or Steve Smith, for that matter, if he was a stronger captain, if he wanted to really go against the decision and not for it, he could have always stood up and said, no mate, I'm not doing this, just go to hell.
I know you would say that Bancroft is an adult. Not that I know you literally said that Bancroft is an adult, Steve Smith is.
Absolutely.
But somebody like David Warner, with the respect he commands in the team, not to mention he's the most senior player in the team. Let's be honest, Warner can be a bully at times, and you know how it works in, like we have seen this in gully cricket. Like it's not always about who's the captain or who's the best performing team. Like you have that one senior who is going to take the bat out of your hands and say, "Hey, I'm gonna open the batting. I'm gonna open the bowling. It doesn't matter what you think." I do believe it might have been a case of that with respect to Warner as well.
No, I don't
All I'm
think so.
saying is
I don't
it's
think
not.
he was. I don't think he was the de facto captain or anything at that point in time. Yes, he was senior to Cameron Bancroft, but he was on the same level, or maybe slightly little senior, but same level as Steve Smith in terms of the stature, at least,
I
and
mean, being the most
definitely not on
intimidating.
level. Definitely not on level with Darren Lehman, and definitely, it was always the bowling unit's call whether to do it or not. And the umpires all, I mean, and how much do you submit to stupidity in a day where you have 1,000 cameras capturing your every moment, when people are shown no speaking, and people are shown talking, or showing actions which are vulgar on camera in some stand in the spectator stands. How do you plan to escape from such a reality where you are actually putting your hands into your groin, picking out a sandpaper, scruffing the ball up, and then throwing it to the umpires after every over? How do you plan to escape that? That is absolutely stupid and naive. And to submit to that stupidity did not require someone to be bullying you. It just required a collective stupidity. And that's exactly what happened. David Warner was stupid. Steve Smith was doubly stupid because he was the captain and he said didn't take a stance. Of course, Cummins is the captain now. There are much more senior players than him right now. But Cummins has the guts to take a stand right now. Of course, I have seen even in the recent matches where David Warner, Steve Smith, and other senior leadership players are directing where the fielder should be placed, along with Cummins. So it's not just a single leader. In cricket, it's always a leadership group, after the 90s at least. In the 90s, when you had someone like, Ramiz Raja or Javed Miandad or Waqar Yunis, or I'm taking Pakistani names because these were like heads of state in their cricket teams. Because someone like Imran Khan set that culture up where you had one leader and you had to listen to him, exactly what he says. And same with Indian cricket. Subcontinent teams had that culture where you had one captain and you had to listen to him. like whether it was a Mohammad Azharuddin or a Kapil Dev or whoever it was, Saurav Ganguly, you always used to call them as sir. It was like Saurav sir and Dhoni sir and all those things. And same with even I could take go on forever with these examples. You can probably also have this with Australian cricket. Like people used to look up to Alan Border and used to be scared of him to an extent where he used to be and still is called Captain Grumpy, because Alan Border will definitely pull your pants down if you are actually going to act up to him. So Australian cricket also used to have that culture, but then beyond the 90s, every team moved into a culture where there are 2 or 3 senior players along with the coach and some of the support staff who take decisions collectively, is what we should remember. And that's where I feel that it was not David Warner bullying the rest of the team, saying, look, I'm not the captain, I'm just a senior player, I'm going to bully you, I'm going to ask you to put a sandpaper into your pocket and then take it out, stuff the ball, do tampering, shine one side, and Pat Cummins, you bowl reverse swing and get the guy out. I mean, it's not a stupid team, firstly. Then we are actually discrediting everyone else's intelligence in that team, many of who actually are still playing in the team. And including Darren Lehman, he was definitely in the know. I mean, why else would you actually expect him to resign? Do you want me to believe that Darren Lehman resigned only because his family was threatened and abused after the scandal? Of course, it happens all the time. I think Travis Head's family was threatened after he won the World Cup for Australia recently. So, I mean, people don't resign on such things. People just brush off social media nonsense. But then I think it was with everyone's knowledge, Cricket Australia took a call. They had this discussion. They had to scapegoat someone, just like any other leadership decision. When something goes really wrong, you need scapegoats. And those were the 3 which was probably which were easy to target. David Warner, of course, Pantomonian villain. Like you can always you have this boy in class, right? Anything goes wrong, the teacher comes back or the professor comes back and says, okay, it must be this guy, the easy to pin one. So David Warner, there you go. Then you have the captain who agreed to this decision, Steve Smith. And then you have the guy who was caught with evidence. You have no escape. I mean, if Cameron Bancroft did not show that he pulled out something yellow from his pants, he would not have been probably punished for it. He was caught with evidence and his career was on the line. And still he was punished because he was caught with evidence. So those were the 3. But if they had to really take action, it could have been the entire team which could have been fired, and Australian cricket could have been banned for another year or 2 by Australian board themselves. Because if we go by pure ICC punishments, they could have just got away with sanctions for a few test matches, just like we have seen in the past with, yeah, exactly. So we have seen that in the past with some of the Indian cricket players involved in rubbing on throat lozenges on cricket balls to get the shine. Happened with I think jelly beans or something with English cricketers, Marcus Trescott, I think Michael Vaughan involved in that, adding shine to the ball. Same happened even with South African cricketers, like Faf du Plessis was involved in ball tampering allegations. So you have a history of
I think
allegations.
they call that an argument of 2 wrongs trying to be one.
Absolutely. No, I'm not talking about the wrongs. I'm not talking about the wrongs here. You are missing the point. I'm not talking about the wrongs of doing the ball tampering act. That is wrong. I'm not justifying David Warner involved in this huge scandal. What I'm trying to say is that the punishment should also be proportionate. It was disproportionate punishment for what has been already labeled by ICC, and they have a clause for it. They have a punishment for it. It was a bit too harsh, but it was right in my point. As an Australian fan, I agree with it, because it hurt the Australian public. It hurt the Australian fans, who are usually very proud and take moral high grounds on such matters when it involves other teams, and when it even involves their own. It really hurt the pride of Australian cricket. And that's where Cricket Australia took the stance, and not ICC, not anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is the whole Australia way of playing, play hard but play fair, that you spoke about right before the recording. And that is where this gets real personal for me. I've always credited my love for Australia to the way that they play. Right? I grew up playing gully cricket, looking up to the likes of Ricky Ponting or Shane Warne, and it doesn't matter whether you're going to win the game or not, but you give it your best, but not at the cost of you know
Yeah.
overstepping that line. Um,
Yeah, I think that's where I would like to quote some of the older legendary players who always say, play hard but fair, and they took it too far.
Yeah, but I am willing to concede this one. I do agree that Warner was probably the easiest to win it on because right after the scandal, if you remember, so it was all about Bancroft and Steve Smith, but like the immediate reaction was just about those two, but somewhere it was made. To be about David Warner, and somehow he has found it the hardest to come back from. But this almost reminds me of the really famous Batman quote, right, from James Gordon. He's not the hero that Gotham deserves, but he's the hero that Gotham deserves, but not the one that it needs right now. We can hunt him because he can take it, because he's not our hero. I think that's more or less how we all feel about David Warner. And just like how Batman ran off after you know, taking the blame for Harvey Dent's murder only to come back in Dark Knight Rises. We also saw David Warner come back, but with Sunrisers in that epic season that he had in 2019, where he single handedly took them to their first and only IPL trophy.
Yeah, I think absolutely, spot on there with how we have pinned him as the villain. And I'll wait for you to actually talk about the Sandpaper Gate again when we do a Steve Smith special uh, during his farewell game as well. It's only fair that I ask that we do the same thing on Steve Smith special, because it's something which has gone on to define David Warner, the cricketer. I wouldn't say overshadow. It's gone on to define the way he is, especially for fans who have not have been able to forgive him for what happened, as if he's the poster boy of the whole scandal that happened. But good call out on winning Sunrisers their only trophy in the IPL. That season almost belonged to only David Warner and Johnny Bairstow, along with, of course, some shining performances from the Indian bowling camp, Bhuvneshwar Kumar and, if I'm not wrong, Sandeep Sharma and others who helped SRH lift the trophy that year. But single-handedly, David Warner was so consistent in the IPL. I think, regardless of what he has done across his career, good and bad and the ugly, he's an IPL legend, along with someone like Chris Gale and AB de Villiers and Virat Kohli. I think Warner probably
Hmm. Typical
somewhere.
of an RCB fan. Called out IPL legends, just the three players that played for RCB.
Yeah, of course, David Warner plays for Delhi Capital, so and also played for SRH, so I'm covering three teams here. Uh, so yeah, I mean, the point is that he's an IPL legend, no matter how he does in the future seasons. But something to look forward to for his Indian fans. One thing, Chris, I think we cannot deny is that he has a huge Indian fan base, especially during the pandemic era where he was really popular on TikTok and other social media, where he used to post videos of Indian movie scenes, with his favorite being Allu Arjun.
Of course. Who can forget that? And I think this is where David Warner probably started making amends to me as well as millions of other Australian and cricketing fans. He somehow went from this rogue bad boy in class, like you called, punching people in the faces, cheating in the exams, cheating in the test, quite literally, to being this adorable senior who danced around, who put family first, who showed what it means for a sports person to play the game, but how it cannot happen without the love and support of the family. The only other cricketer who comes to mind is Virat Kohli. Once again, you can actually draw a lot of parallels between the two, both brash, aggressive uh, prodigies from a young age who actually went on to live up to the hype, but for whom family comes first, right? And that definitely repaired a lot of Warner image. And kudos and shout out to his family, be it Candice, his wife, or his three little children that we all know them like, they're one of our relatives at this point, or a Bollywood superstar. You follow the family. You know what Ivy is up to every other day. You know which one of the three is going to pick up the bat and possibly play for the Australian women's team. And nothing but respect for
Yeah,
Warner on
absolutely.
that.
They were like a rock to him during his bad phase after the sandpaper gate. He did not have the kind of form or the the events that followed the sandpaper comeback. Like Steve Smith came back in 2019 with a really classy performance. Not just a classy, what a comeback that was! Like the English crowd, which was booing Steve Smith throughout the first few Test matches. Towards the end of the fifth Test match, they were all standing in adulation, and that was such a proud moment for any Aussie fan. I think that probably took off the stain of the sandpaper gate from Steve Smith's CV at least a little bit. Cameron Bancroft, of course, went off the spotlight, was banned from the side, went into domestic cricket, performed well in the Shield and the BBL for the Scorchers, and I think he's now moved on teams. These two had their own ways to take off the stain and reform themselves in different ways. For David Warner, form was a concern, especially in red ball cricket. But in white ball cricket, he was a legend, and he is a legend. And his performances were really consistent across both 50 over and 20 over formats. I'm excited to see him in the IPL and in other 2020 leagues around the world, wherever he might sign up. And once again, him playing for the Sydney Sixers or whichever team he signs up for. I would ideally want David Warner to be in the 100 as well. I'm a big fan of that format just for bringing cricket to the younger audience in England. So looking forward to him signing up there. But I think what defines David Warner's legacy is that he is an all format legend in Australia, if not across world cricket, and it's really hard to find replacement for him. And while we talk about replacement, it's a good segue to moving into the last section of this episode or show. We will talk about who are the likely candidates to replace David Warner as he walks
What
away.
is Labuschagne doing in a frame where we are talking about potential replacements for Warner? Don't
This
bring
this
that
was
guy
this
anywhere
was more
close to
this
the
was more to say thank you, Davy. Yeah, but
I'll smile.
potential candidates, the obvious suspects are, of course, Marcus Harris, who has already played with David Warner and who has already been given enough chances in the team by someone who was really biased towards Marcus Harris, Justin Langer, and someone who was biased against Usman Khwaja, Justin Langer again. So I think thanks to Justin Langer, Usman Khwaja also lost a better part of his career in terms of favoritism towards Marcus Harris, who is a Western Australian. I wouldn't really accuse of favoritism without knowing what went behind the scenes. But I
It's
think
good
Marcus
actually.
Harris. Sorry.
Justin Langer is also somebody I have a lot of respect for because nobody else could have picked up the pieces the way they were shattered and
Yeah.
put this side back together. A lot of respect for that, but it did not come without a cost. Be it the constant dressing room dissents or Pat Cummins having to stand up and write that famous or infamous letter,
Yeah.
depending on which side you are on between the current team and the legends. But I think the biggest strain in Langer's coaching career for Australia for me was how many good years that he took away from one of the best ever Australian openers in Usman Khawaja. Um, you always hear Khawaja saying how it felt like the entire team was walking around the eggshells. And just look at Khawaja and Warner, what they've achieved in just the very little time that
Absolutely.
they've been.
To me, they are no less, or even sometimes, I find them better in terms of consistency than even Hayden Langer, to be honest.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe this
Yeah,
is the
I mean,
reason for
I'm
bias,
no
but
nostalgia merchant. At least when I say this, they are definitely better than Hayden Langer. Uh,
and
uh, at least when it comes to consistency,
yeah,
and took away the best years of Khwaja, and
Khawaja.
that was because he was
And
doing
I think
Marcus Harris.
yeah, and it's worth calling out that Warner is probably what 36, but he feels that it's time for him to retire, even though he's at a physical peak. He's still possibly the first or second fastest runner in the Australia team, tied up or right behind Manas Labuschagne, who's like a 27-year-old kid compared to him. And Warner can
No, I think
comfortably
he's
say
the
that.
fastest. He's probably one of the top three fastest runners in world cricket, bar
Mm,
Virat Kohli or someone like that.
yeah.
So
Mm.
I think MS Dhoni during his
So,
peak and Virat Kohli
yeah.
probably came close. Yeah.
And while Warner is able to make peace with his career and hang up his boots at 36, Usman Khawaja at 37 is not able to do that because he felt like he missed out on years of cricket
He
because
feels
of
robbed. Yeah.
the yeah. So he feels the need to, and thankfully he is not overstayed his welcome by any means. He might be 37, but he's still one of the most reliable players for Australia, more so after Warner's departure. But I felt that given the camaraderie that they two shared, this was worth bringing up about Kamaja
Yeah,
before we.
absolutely. The next name I have, I think so. Marker Harris for me, and I'm guessing for you as well, is a big no, because he's taken his chances and he has really performed well in the Shield. But I don't think he's test level. He's someone like suited for domestic cricket, and I would be happy for him to stay there and do well. Uh, Cameron Bancroft definitely has exposure to Test cricket, has looked really rock solid while he has batted, and is a good replacement keeper while it calls for it, and also a good short leg fielder, one of the legendary domestic short leg fielders in that position. So Cameron Bancroft to me is a hot favorite along with Matt Renshaw, another left-hander. So if Australia are going for a left-left combination, they might go for Matt Renshaw. Also, given the chemistry that he shares with a fellow Queenslander in Usman Khwaja.
I think for me, the two picks would be either Matt Renshaw or Will Pukowski. He is a 25-year-old prodigy, was touted as the next big thing in Australian cricket. But unfortunately, in a lot of ways, like Usman Khawaja, but again, in different ways, cricket has not been kind to Will so far. He has had concussions, he's been dealing with mental issues related to that. And if and when he chooses that he is ready to get back to cricket, Australia's Test cricket, I think he is obviously a top candidate to partner Kavacha for me.
Absolutely. I think these are the hot two favorites. But we spoke of the ideal opening partner for Usman Khwaja. But now let's talk about reality, about how Australian cricket usually thinks. And they usually have these band-aid, makeshift approaches to fixing the opening problem. And I'm really scared that they will actually do that again by picking someone randomly out of the current playing 11 and putting them as an opening partner for Usman Khwaja. Someone like a Mitch
Yeah.
Marsh for opening partnership, or someone like Travis Head or Cameron Green. We do not know. These are the three names that come to my mind. Cameron Green can open because he has opened in domestic cricket and also in the 2020 leagues across the world. Travis Head, of
Yeah,
course,
if you
can
want to
open.
start every game with 9 batsmen,
Yeah,
right from the second over, he's the best choice.
yeah.
Do
So
you really think Cameron Green right now has shown enough to open for Australia that he'll survive the new ball attack from the likes of Bumrah or Stuart
I
Broad
don't
or a
think
Markwood.
Cameron Green looks that solid even against the old ball these days. So when the ball is doing a little bit, he's of course a talent prodigy. Good, I know he will probably take his time, just like the other Australian legends in the past who
And
come
which
back.
team does he play for in the IPL again?
He
I've
plays
been too
for.
kind on.
He used to play for Mumbai Indians, but he plays for RCB. RCB. So yeah, I'm not being biased here, but then I'm not really personally in favor of Cameron Green opening the batting, or even coming back into the side in place of red hot Mitchell Marsh. So uh, I think Cameron Green probably will take some more time on the bench right now. um, Travis Head comes to mind, but then again, he gives that counter punch option in the middle of the order.
Number
When
six.
Australia lose a few wickets, so I don't think they will go with Travis Head either. They might take a punt and go with Steve Smith, is what I am hearing off late.
Please
What
don't
are
do
your
it. Please no. Please leave my guy alone. I still haven't recovered. Neither has he from the way he is batted, from taking away his number three spot and giving it to his clone, Manas Labashe. I know it has
yeah?
worked well for
I think
Labashe, but not.
Steve Smith at number three was probably the best, and he should continue to bat there. But for Labuschagne, I think this idea was first proposed by Shane Watson, I guess, because he was seeing Steve Smith not being the focused Steve Smith that he used to be. He's of course found his hands
This
and
is
playing.
like taking a middle bencher and putting them in the first bench because that way you hope that right at the beginning they'll pay more attention.
No, I think that was the funniest analogy with regard to Steve Smith moving into the opening slot, and for the exact same reason. So Shane Watson said that he's probably not able to focus for long periods of time, which is why he needs to come to the first bench. I'm sorry, the opening slot, so that he could focus on the moving ball early ahead in the game, and which could probably be a challenge and provide some purpose to someone who's already become a Zen master at number three or number four in the batting order. So I think Steve Smith is the latest name, but it's really funny as a thought. I hope they don't do that just for a makeshift purpose. But I'm not really opposed to it either, by the way. So I really want Steve Smith to find form. So I probably don't mind trying it against West Indies in the home summer right now. Maybe just gives him an opportunity to refocus and see what he wants to do with the rest of his career. So maybe gives him that focus back. Who knows? Shane Watson had a good
Get
break
his
while he was.
hands back, not focus in his parlance.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just going back to Shane Watson, who had a second career almost when he started opening the batting for Australia, and he was the only player at that point in time playing well for Australia. The rest of them would fall, in a pack. So I think these are the various options that we have, but it's going to be a huge void to fill. There is no doubt about it. I'm sure it's going to be a long night for the Australian team. We are celebrating the career of David Warner. They are going to have a few beers while we are going to have a few as well during the weekend. Absolutely amazing career, stellar career, of course, checkered career, we would say, eventful one. And as he put it today during the presentation ceremony or before that, exciting and entertaining is what we want to remember David Warner as. And we are looking forward to an exciting and entertaining time that he will have in the IPL and in the other 2020 competitions, including the 2020 World Cup, where he could be a very huge part of in the Australian team. That's coming up. So that's all we have for today in this David Warner special. Thank you, Kriska, for providing the entertainment and bringing up various parts of David Warner that otherwise we would have liked to forget. And thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend and love you all.